Have you ever wondered why two people can start with the same paycheck, the same 24 hours, even the same opportunities, yet one builds wealth, freedom, and legacy, while the other lives paycheck to paycheck, trapped, frustrated, quietly watching their dreams dissolve? You see, I've always believed money doesn't just grow, it reflects you. If your thinking expands, your wealth expands. If your habits multiply, your bank account multiplies. And if your time slips through your fingers, so will your future. But here's the beautiful part. You don't need to be born rich. You don't need to be a genius. You only need to master two things: the science of saving and the art of multiplying your productivity fast, focused, and with the discipline of a millionaire. And today I'll show you exactly how to do that. Because I'll tell you, time is the seed. Money is the harvest. Productivity is the tool. And the question is, are you planting weeds or building an orchard that feeds generations? Let's begin. You know, people often come up to me and say, I just can't seem to save money. There's always more month left at the end of the money. And I smile because I've been there. I know what it feels like when every dollar seems to have a name on it before it even arrives. But let me tell you something that changed my life. A simple truth that's so small it sneaks right past most people. If you can't save 10%, start with 1%. Yes, just 1%. You see, when I was 25, I was broke. I'm not talking about short on cash broke. I'm talking about nothing in the bank, nothing in the wallet, dreams on hold, broke. I had excuses lined up like bricks in a wall. Rent, bills, food, it all seemed impossible. But then my mentor leaned across the table one day and asked me, have you ever set aside even 1 penny from every dollar you earn? I laughed nervously and said, no, I can barely survive on what I've got. And he just smiled that quiet, knowing smile and said, that's where you start. We think saving has to be grand. We wait for the perfect moment, the big raise, the windfall, the bonus at the end of the year. But life doesn't work that way. Success doesn't ask permission to begin. It begins when you do, with whatever you have, wherever you are. So I started with just 1%, $1 out of every 100. It was so small I hardly noticed. But that wasn't the point. The point was the habit. The point was the discipline. The point was I was finally telling my money, you work for me now, not the other way around. It wasn't easy at first. The mind rebels against new orders. You think, what's the point? 1%? That's pocket change. But let me tell you, it's never about the amount, it's about the principle. Once I got used to setting aside that tiny fraction, something inside me shifted. I felt in control for the first time. And as the weeks went by, that 1% grew to 3%, then 5%, and eventually 10% and beyond. It became automatic, just like breathing, brushing your teeth, tying your shoes. See, the hardest part of wealth isn't managing millions. It's managing your mindset when you have nothing. But if you can master that, if you can start saving with even 1%, you've already begun building the foundation for financial freedom. You've proven to yourself that you're capable of discipline. And discipline, my friends, is where wealth begins. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned about building wealth and building a life is this: not all effort is created equal. You can work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and still feel stuck, still feel like the hamster on the wheel, running fast but going nowhere. I know that because I lived it. Early on, I thought the answer was always do more hours, more hustle, more sacrifice. But I was exhausted, frustrated, and broke. That's when I discovered one of the most liberating truths in personal success, the 80-20th rule. They call it the Pareto principle, but let me keep it simple. About 80% of your results, your income, your progress, they come from just 20% of what you do. Think about that. Not everything you do matters equally. And that realization changes everything. I remember when I finally sat down and looked honestly at my day, I asked myself, what activities, what efforts actually create the most value? What moves the needle? It was humbling. Most of my time was spent reacting emails, distractions, busy work. But the real breakthroughs? They came from the smallest fraction of focused, intentional work. The conversations that led to sales, the hours spent improving my skills, the time I invested in building relationships. That small slice of focused effort produced the lion's share of my income and opportunities. And here's where most people get trapped. They treat every task like it holds the same weight. They give equal energy to trivialities and essentials, and then wonder why they're burned out but their bank account's still empty. But if you want to multiply your productivity, if you want to grow your earnings like those who build real wealth, you've got to get strategic. You've got to find that 20% that makes the difference and double down on it. When I focused on that principle, everything changed. Instead of saying yes to every meeting, every distraction, every low-value task, I became ruthless with my time. I made space for the few actions that mattered, most the 20% that generated clients, opportunities, growth. And guess what? My income didn't just grow, it multiplied. My stress didn't just shrink, it dissolved. I was finally building, not just spinning my wheels. So let me ask you, are you spending your days busy or effective? Are you focused on activities that feel urgent or ones that truly change your future? Remember, wealth isn't built by working harder at everything. It's built by working smarter at the few things that matter most. Find your 20%, master it, and you'll transform your results faster than you ever imagined. Let me tell you something I learned the hard way. Discipline fades when the dream gets blurry. You see, building wealth, transforming your productivity, creating the kind of financial future that lets you breathe easy, that's not just about numbers on a page or hours on the clock. It's about desire, it's about vision, it's about understanding why you're doing it in the first place. And here's the truth. If you lose sight of your why, you'll lose your way. I remember when I first set out to change my financial situation. I was tired of being broke, tired of watching other people live with options while I counted pennies. But the hunger to change wasn't enough by itself. You see, motivation is like a battery. If you don't recharge it, it runs dry. And what recharges it? Connecting to your why. For me, that why was freedom, not just the freedom to buy more, but the freedom to live on my terms. To wake up when I decided, to travel where I pleased, to help my family, to contribute to causes I cared about. It wasn't about the money, it was about what the money allowed me to become. But life has a funny way of testing your resolve. You get busy, you get distracted, obstacles pop up, and before you know it, the dream gets pushed to the side, covered in dust. That's why I made it a habit, not once a year, but regularly, to revisit my why. I'd sit down quietly and ask myself, why did I start this journey? What am I really building here? Who am I doing this for? I'd picture the life I wanted to create, the peace of mind I wanted to feel, the impact I wanted to make. And every time, like clockwork, that spark reignited. Let me be clear, motivation doesn't just magically appear. You've got to cultivate it. You've got to water it like a seed. If you only check in with your why when things are easy, you'll quit when they get hard. But when you stay connected to that deeper purpose, discipline becomes natural. Sacrifices feel lighter. The setbacks lose their power to shake you. So I'll ask you, have you visited your why lately? Is your vision as clear today as the day you first dared to dream? Because when you reconnect with that purpose, you'll find the energy, the discipline, and the creativity to keep moving forward even when life tries to slow you down. And that's how real, lasting change begins. When I was starting out, I used to believe that the answer to all my problems was to simply earn more. I thought, if I could just add a few more dollars to my paycheck, everything would sort itself out. But let me tell you, I met people who earned 3 times what I did, and yet they were just as broke. They were running fast, making money, but spending even faster. That's when I realized it's not how much you make that counts, it's how much you keep. Income is flashy, but profit is what builds wealth. One day my mentor asked me a question that stopped me in my tracks. What's your profit this month? I said, Well, I made this much. He smiled and said, no, that's your revenue. I asked about your profit. What's left after you've paid everyone else? After all the bills, after the spending, after the dinners and the quick buys? And the answer, embarrassingly, was close to nothing. I was busy, but I wasn't wise. I was moving, but not progressing. That's when I started thinking differently. You see, focusing on profit changes how you approach money. It forces you to pay attention not just to what's coming in, but where it's all going. I learned to treat my own finances like a business. A business that earns $1 million and spends $1 million is a failing business. And a person who earns a lot but keeps nothing is heading for the same result. What matters is margin. What matters is what stays in your pocket, what you can grow, what you can invest, what you can preserve. That shift made me start asking a new question. How much of this income is mine to keep? When I'd get paid, I'd separate the profit first. I didn't wait to see what was left over at the end of the month, because there's rarely anything left over unless you take it out first. I treated saving and investing as the first bill to pay, not the last. I called it the bill to my future. I would rather live simply today and live freely tomorrow than live extravagantly now and struggle later. And here's the real magic when you focus on profit, not just earnings. You start making smarter decisions about expenses, about opportunities, about what really deserves your money and your time. You stop trying to impress the world and start working quietly on your freedom. Remember, high income can build ego, but profit builds wealth. I learned something early in my journey that saved me more money, stress, and regret than any investment advice ever could. It's what I call the 24-hour rule. It's simple, but like most simple things in life, it has extraordinary power when you apply it with discipline. Whenever you feel that pull, that urge to buy something significant, a new gadget, an expensive watch, the shiny thing that catches your eye in the moment, you don't act immediately. You pause. You wait. You give it 24 hours. Now, let me tell you why this small window of time changes everything. I've watched people, good people, intelligent people, sabotage their financial future, not through big, disastrous decisions, but through small, repeated emotional purchases. You see, emotions are temporary, but the consequences of financial decisions stick around far longer. And when emotions are running high, excitement, frustration, even boredom, our judgment gets cloudy. That's when we spend money, not to solve a need, but to satisfy a fleeting feeling. I've experienced this myself. I remember standing in a store, paycheck in my pocket, staring at something I convinced myself I needed the latest gadget, the expensive upgrade, something to impress others. I felt that rush, that voice saying, "You work hard, you deserve it," and I almost bought it. But my mentor's words echoed in my mind. Wait 24 hours. If it still makes sense tomorrow, you'll know it's not emotion, it's reason. So I walked away reluctantly. The next day I looked at that same item, and do you know what I realized? I didn't need it. In fact, I didn't even want it anymore. What changed? Not the item, not my income, just my perspective. Time cools impulse. It clears the fog of temporary emotions and lets wisdom step in. And the most remarkable part is, over time, this habit builds not just your bank account, but your character. It teaches patience. It strengthens discipline. It turns you from a consumer of life into a creator of your future. You see, wealth isn't built by luck or chance. It's built by small, consistent acts of control. And this is one of them. The next time that purchase calls to you, remember, the price you pay isn't just in dollars. It's in what that money could have done for your freedom, your growth, your dreams. So give it 24 hours. Your future self will thank you. I've always believed that the real art of building wealth isn't about living like a monk or counting every penny with fear. It's about practicing frugality with purpose, knowing exactly where to say no, so you can say a powerful yes to the things that truly shape your future. You see, far too many people confuse frugality with deprivation. They picture a life where they deny themselves every pleasure, live in scarcity, and mistake suffering for discipline. But that's not the kind of frugality I'm talking about. That kind of life burns people out. And wealth doesn't grow from burnout, it grows from clarity, intention, and consistent decision making. Frugality, the way I learned it, is about alignment. It's about looking at your resources, your money, your energy, your time, and making sure they serve your vision, not your impulses. I'll give you a personal example. Early in my career, when I was broke and trying to climb out of financial frustration, I didn't stop having coffee with friends or reading good books. I didn't say no to things that fueled my mind and built relationships. But I did say no often and without apology to things that didn't serve my future. The flashy gadgets, the constant upgrades, the endless cycle of chasing appearances, I cut those out. Not because I was punishing myself, but because I finally understood this simple truth. Every dollar spent is a decision. It's a vote for the life you're building. And here's where psychology comes in. Most people are terrified to say no. They think if they skip a dinner out, drive an older car, or pass on the latest trend, they'll feel less significant. But significance doesn't come from things. It comes from growth, from freedom, from knowing your life isn't controlled by every advertisement or comparison. Practicing frugality with purpose trains you to control your financial story rather than letting society dictate it for you. I've met people earning six figures, living paycheck to paycheck, and others with modest incomes building wealth quietly. The difference? Purposeful frugality. They say no to temporary distractions so they can say yes to investments, education, opportunities, the things that compound over time and create lasting change. So, remember, frugality isn't about shrinking your life, it's about expanding your possibilities. Say no to what doesn't matter today so you can say yes to your freedom, your vision, your dreams tomorrow. That's the kind of wealth worth building. One of the simplest yet most overlooked habits that can completely transform your financial future is building what I call a wealth calendar. It's funny how people will mark birthdays, vacations, or weekend plans on the calendar, but the most important dates, the dates that decide your freedom, your peace of mind, your wealth, they leave those to chance. But let me tell you from experience, what you track, you improve. What you ignore, you lose control over. I learned this the hard way when I was younger. I used to avoid looking at my finances. I told myself, I'll deal with it later, or it's not the right time. And each month I fell a little further behind, not because I wasn't working hard, but because I wasn't paying attention. It wasn't until I started treating my financial life with the same respect I gave my appointments and my business goals that things changed. I began to schedule time every month, without fail, to sit down and face the numbers, to review my debts, to calculate my net worth, to adjust how much I was saving or investing. That small discipline built momentum, and momentum built confidence. Think about it. A business that never reviews its profits and losses is headed for disaster. Your personal finances are no different. So, I encourage you make wealth management part of your regular routine. Set a date on your calendar every month to review your financial picture. It doesn't have to be complicated. Start simple. Look at your debts. Are they going down? Assess your net worth. Are you moving in the right direction? Review your savings rate. Is it growing, even by 1%? These are small checkpoints, but they keep you engaged, focused, and in control. And here's the real magic of the wealth calendar. It changes how you feel about money. Instead of fear or avoidance, you replace it with clarity and confidence. You stop guessing and start leading your financial life with intention. Over time, these small reviews create big results. You'll spot problems early, celebrate progress consistently, and most importantly, stay connected to the reality of your money, not the fantasy, not the fear, but the facts. Remember, wealth isn't an accident. It's a series of disciplined choices. And when you anchor those choices to your calendar, they become a habit. That's when real, lasting change begins. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned about money and life is that security breeds confidence, and confidence leads to better decisions. But security isn't built by accident, it's built by preparation. And when it comes to your financial future, maintaining liquidity is one of the most critical preparations you can make. It's not the most glamorous part of building wealth, Nobody brags about their emergency fund at dinner parties. But let me tell you, when life throws the unexpected your way, and it will those who've prepared sleep well, while those who haven't panic. I remember being 25, broke, deep in debt, and completely exposed. If I lost a paycheck, it wasn't just inconvenient, it was catastrophic. And when you live that way, every little problem feels like a crisis. Every bump in the road feels like a mountain. But then I learned this principle. Keep enough liquid cash or easily accessible assets to cover at least 3 to 6 months of living expenses. That simple idea changed my life. It didn't happen overnight, but as I began to set aside even the smallest amounts, I built a cushion, and that cushion gave me breathing room. And breathing room gives you power, the power to make decisions based on vision, not fear. Now, let me be clear. This isn't money you invest in the market hoping for high returns. This is your safety net, the cash that sits quietly, doing its job, ready for the unexpected. It's not exciting, but neither is an airbag in your care until you need it. The markets can rise and fall, the economy can shift, companies can close their doors, but if you've built your liquidity, you stay calm, you stay strategic. You don't have to sell assets at a loss, you don't have to borrow money under pressure, and you never let temporary setbacks turn into permanent damage. I've seen people lose years of progress because they didn't prepare for life's inevitable curveballs, a job loss, a health issue, an unexpected expense, and they were forced to react from a place of desperation instead of strength. But I've also seen ordinary folks with modest incomes weather storms with grace and confidence because they followed this one simple rule. So, my advice to you is this: start today. Even if it's just a small amount, begin building your liquidity. It's not just about surviving emergencies, it's about protecting your dreams, your momentum, your peace of mind. Because true wealth isn't just about what you earn, it's about how prepared you are when life gets unpredictable. One of the things I discovered early in my life, and I learned it the hard way, is that money is like a relationship. And just like any relationship, it's built on trust. But here's the catch. Before money can trust you, you have to show that you can be trusted with it. Most people don't think that way. They think money is just numbers on a page, coins in a jar, bills in a wallet. But let me tell you something profound I learned from my mentor. Every dollar you earn is a little certificate of your performance, your discipline, your value to the marketplace. And if you don't treat those little certificates with respect, they won't stay with you for long. When I was young, I wasn't always trustworthy with money. I'd earn it, spend it, forget it, and then wonder why there was never enough. I treated money casually, and money treated me the same way. But everything began to shift when I learned to treat every dollar like it mattered. I started to ask, where did this come from? How much time, effort, and skill did it take to bring this dollar into my life? And once I understood the value behind it, I realized it deserved direction, not neglect. See, money doesn't manage itself. If you don't tell it where to go, it disappears. And I've seen it happen. A great paycheck vanishes by Monday, leaving people wondering where it went. But it didn't vanish by magic, it vanished by a lack of respect. So here's what I started to do, and I urge you to do the same. Track every dollar. Know where it comes, from what part of your skills, your work, your effort produced it, and more importantly, decide where it goes. Assign every dollar a job. Is it going toward necessities, toward savings, toward growth, toward generosity? Don't let it drift around aimlessly. And then, just like you check the progress of a project, review your money's performance periodically. Once a week, once a month, sit down with your numbers. See if they're working for you, if they're building your future, or slipping through your fingers. Money likes attention, it likes leadership. And when you lead it well, it stays. It grows. It multiplies. So remember this. Respect your money, and your money will respect you. Know its source, direct its purpose, and review its performance. That's not just financial management, that's building a relationship of trust with your future. One of the greatest realizations I ever had in my journey from struggle to success was that time is not just something that possesses something you either waste, spend, or invest. And here's the truth. Wealthy people, those who build something lasting, they treat time like it's their most precious asset. Because it is. Money you can lose and earn again. Possessions come and go. But time, once it's gone forever. I remember when I was younger, I used to treat time carelessly. I thought being busy was the same as being productive. I filled my days with activity meetings, conversations, small tasks, but at the end of the week, I had very little to show for it. It wasn't until I understood this simple philosophy that everything started to change. Time is a currency more powerful than money. And how you use it determines how wealthy you become just financially, but in skill, relationships, influence, and peace of mind. The wealthy don't just let time happen to them, they turn it into an asset. They protect it fiercely, they invest it wisely, and they use it to build the foundations that multiply income and opportunity. Think about it like this. Every hour you waste distracted, unfocused, reacting to life instead of leading it, that's potential wealth slipping through your hands. But every hour you spend sharpening your skills, building valuable connections, studying new ideas, refining your thinking, that hour compounds. It multiplies. I learned to ask myself, is what I'm doing right now making me stronger, smarter, more valuable to the marketplace? Or is it simply filling the space between sunup and sundown? And let me tell you, that one question reshaped my schedule and my life. I cut down the noise. I reduced the meaningless conversations. I stopped reacting to every distraction. Instead, I carved out time to grow, to read, to reflect, to plan, to connect with people who could help me think bigger. See, the wealthiest people I've ever met, they don't just spend time, they invest it where it multiplies. They use time to build skills that produce more income. They nurture relationships that open doors. They generate ideas that create solutions, and those solutions bring value, and value brings wealth. So, ask yourself today, are you treating time like an expense or like an asset? Because those who build lasting success, they guard their hours as carefully as they guard their dollar sand, often even more so. Turn time into your greatest asset and watch how everything else follows. There's something I learned early on when I was stumbling through the process of building my future. It's that failure isn't final unless you decide to stop adjusting. You see, most people get stuck because they cling to the same plan, even when it's obvious it's not working. It's like driving a car with a flat tire and thinking if you press harder on the gas, somehow it'll fix itself. But success, real success, comes from learning to reinvent your approach when the results aren't showing up. I remember when I first tried to build my business. I had energy, I had excitement, and I had a plan. But the plan wasn't working. Weeks turned into months, and my bank account wasn't growing, my confidence was shrinking, and frustration was settling in like an unwanted guest. And yet, I clung to the same methods, the same strategies, because I was too proud to admit the plan needed to change. It wasn't until I sat down with my mentor and he said to me, "Listen, the plan is not sacred, the goal is sacred. If the plan fails, adjust it, but never surrender the goal." That moment was pivotal. I learned to treat every quarter, every 3 months like a performance review, not just for my business, but for my personal habits, my financial progress, my skill development. I'd ask myself, what's working, what's not? Where am I seeing returns on my time, energy, and resources? And just as importantly, where am I pouring effort with no results? It takes honesty. It takes humility. But let me tell you, there's power in being willing to let go of what's broken and redirect your energy toward what's building momentum. I started doing quarterly reviews like clockwork. If a strategy wasn't producing results, I didn't bury my head in the sand. I tweaked it, refined it, or scrapped it all together. I redirected that energy toward the parts of my business and my life that were generating progress. And each time, I got sharper. My income grew. My confidence solidified. Because when you become flexible in your strategy, but unshakable in your vision, failure loses its power over you. It's not weakness to reinvent a failing plan, it's wisdom. Success belongs to those who adjust, who realign, and who stay committed to growth no matter how many times the blueprint changes. Let me leave you with this. Wealth, success, financial freedom, they don't arrive at your doorstep like a surprise package. They are constructed brick by brick with discipline, small decisions, and a willingness to adjust when the path gets rough. You don't need a perfect background, a fancy degree, or luck handed down from the heavens. You need the courage to start small, the wisdom to protect your time, the humility to learn, and the discipline to act consistently. Remember, the seeds of your future are hidden in your daily routine. The way you handle $1 is how you'll handle 100. The way you manage 1 hour is how you'll master your days. The way you face setbacks, by adjusting the plan, not abandoning the goal, that's what separates those who dream from those who achieve. But here's the most important truth. No one can do this for you. You must decide. You must choose to respect your time, your money, your vision, and you must do it today, not next week, not someday, today. Because time will pass regardless. The only question is whether you'll still be waiting or whether you'll be building. So, I challenge you when this moment ends, don't just feel inspired, translate it into action. Review your plan. Reinvent what isn't working. Protect your time like your life depends on it, because it does. Track your dollars, your progress, your habits. Start small, but start, because when you respect your resources, the world starts respecting your results. This is your moment, the decision, to lead your life, your finances, your future, or to keep drifting. I believe in your ability to choose. Now go prove it.